At the beginning of the film is shown a beautiful girl named Mika. Mika herself is still in high school, where Mika and her friends are seen chatting about their respective girlfriends. Except Mika, because he has never been in a relationship once. When they are in front of the class, there were two guys who passed by the black-haired boy named Nazwa and his friend with white hair named Hiro, whose face looks like a gangster is trying to ask for a cell phone number. But Mika's friend stopped him until Mika bumped into Hiro and they looked at each other. Mika was embarrassed, he finally ran. When he came home from school, it turned out that Mika's cell phone was lost and he looked for it around the school. When he looked into the library, he found that his cell phone was on a bookshelf. Mika picked up the phone and spoke to someone who called him. The scene changes at night. Mika is seen eating with his family. They look very happy. When he was about to sleep, Mika called the man again. Day after day it changed. Mika and the man had become friends like friends. When Mika's family got into a problem, her mother and father were about to divorce for some reason, and sadly again it was very fitting for her birthday. Finally Mika called the man and vented about his birthday. The man also asked to meet at school to celebrate Mika's birthday together. While at school and Mika was waiting for the man, finally the man came over and it turned out that the man was Hiro. Mika, who was surprised, was finally about to leave. Then their hero gave a beautiful and fragrant flower to Mika, but Mika did not accept it and ran away. When he came home from school, Mika looked very in a hurry to go home, but he saw in Hiro, who was giving fertilizer to the flowers he planted. Their hero tries to seduce Mika by making a rainbow from water. Mika looks really happy. The scene changed to a day when Hiro was at school again, suddenly chatting with Mika to meet at the library. So Mika reasoned to go to the UKS. Then they met Hiro. Their hero invites Mika for a walk. Arriving at Hiro's house, Mika is introduced to Hiro's brother and Mika is invited to play in Hiro's room, and wikwik is inevitable. After having a good time, Mika woke up from his sleep while fixing the buttons on his clothes and others that had been dislodged, and then he went home. The next day Mika, who was waiting for an angkot, was suddenly kidnapped by several men and put into a car. Mika tried to get out and run away from the man who seemed to want to do good, and sure enough they vented their lust for Mika. When night fell, Mika tried to go home tired and lethargic. It turns out that Hiro is also looking for Mika. Hiro finally found Mika and immediately hugged her happily. Then Mika is taken to the house to take refuge and Hiro looks for the person who has broken into Mika's hole. He also chased the man, and it turned out that they were ordered by a woman named Waw, who was paid, apparently, because of the excitement and anger. Brother shaved the cow's hair with the scissors. Hiro also took Mika home, but Mika's family immediately closed the door without any further ado. Once upon a time Hiro took Mika to his favorite place. The two of them chatted romantically, but Hiro, who wanted to invite them to have a sipiki, didn't get a good response from Mika. When Mika left for school, he got a message that said he was holding on to Mika like that. Then when you enter the classroom, on the blackboard there is also writing like that. Hiro, who knew about this, became very angry. Then clear the blackboard in another class. Hiro also brought Mika to the library and tried to calm Mika because he was carried away by the romantic atmosphere. When Mika was having dinner with his family, suddenly he was sick and vomited, which made him taken to the hospital. While in the hospital, Mika's father was silent. The next day Mika met Hiro and said that he was pregnant with Hiro's child. When he heard that, Hiro suddenly ran away to nowhere, which made Mika wait so long. Because it was a long time, Mika decided to go back, but Hiro came back and gave a gift to Mika and promised to make Mika happy. Hiro gives her a ring and invites her to have some fun. When Mika and Hiro asked for the blessing of Mika's parents, Mika's father looks very disappointed and doesn't approve of their relationship until Hiro doesn't want to go home if he doesn't get his blessing. The next day when Mika was at school, he was interrogated because he didn't like Mika. He was close to Hiro. Until Mika was pushed down. A few moments later, Mika was walking with Hiro to celebrate Christmas, suddenly felt sick. Finally he was taken to the hospital and it turned out that the baby in his stomach was gone. Mika was finally very sad. Then when the two of them were praying at their son's grave, which was made where life usually watered the plants, and they promised that they would always be there every December 24th to pray for his son. After that incident, Hiro suddenly disappeared somewhere until Mika came to Hiro's house and still couldn't meet him. But Hiro's brother entered Hiro's room and found Hiro, who was lying down dreaming. One night Mika's friend called to ask them to come to a party at Hiro's house. Yes, because Micah really wants to meet Hiro, he goes. Arrived at Hiro's house, they were drinking until when everyone was asleep. Mika peeked into Hiro's room, but it turned out that Hiro was steady with another woman. Which of course made Micah annoyed, and he finally left. The scene changes when the school tries to talk to Hiro, but Hiro instead says that he wants another girl, and last night's incident indicates they have broken up. Micah finally threw the ring. Mika, who is still curious about what Hiro did, so he chats with Hiro to meet at the library, but Hiro doesn't show up. Again, Mika tries to meet Hiro at his favorite place, and when Mika waits for Hiro to come but he asks not to approach him, Hiro threw Mika's ring which he had thrown at him, then Hiro left. Micah finally tried to forget Hiro and keep the ring. Once Micah was invited by his friends for a small party in another place. He met someone who was a little more mature than himself named Yu. He tried to get closer. Because when it was night, Micah went to his son's grave. When Micah hopes to meet Hiro at that place, he actually meets Yu. Mika is now really opening her heart, but in fact she still remembers Hiro. Seeing Yu, who gave a bunch of flowers to Micah. There Micah thought that the love of the two was very different from the first. The next day at home, Micah heard an argument from his mother and father that they were really going to divorce. Micah then confided in Yu about his family, and then they visited Mika's house there. Incidentally, his mother and father were not there. But instead they find torn photos of their childhood memories. Yu excitedly attached the torn photos. Yes, I mean, let them be entertained. When he met Mika's parents, Yu introduces himself and admits to being Mika's girlfriend, and then he also gives a photo torn back together. Mother and father were moved to tears when they saw the photos. Long story short, right on December 24th, he took Micah to visit his son's grave, and it turned out that Hiro was there, but Mika just kept quiet and prayed for his son. Hiro also looked indifferent to Mika and he left. Month after month has passed. Now Micah is often confused about Hiro and looks at his memories with Hiro. Finally in December again, Micah and Yu return to the grave of their son. But Yu proposed to Micah. Micah just replied with a smile and put on his ring. At Mika's grave, he met Hiro's friend. He told me that Hiro had cancer for 2 years ago, since he broke up with Micah, and he didn't tell you about this because Hiro didn't want Micah to fight alone and cry. Then what has been made first is the plan so that Mika's feelings for Hiro disappear. Yu approached the sad Micah. When he found out about Hiro, immediately wanted to go to meet Hiro. But Yu blocked him until the ring he gave fell, and here Yu finally allowed Micah to go. The scene changed when Mika arrived at Hiro's place, and Hiro was panting because it was Mika who came. Micah was crying while scolding Hiro. Hiro was seen still wearing their covenant ring. There Micah said that he was not happy without Hiro. Mika kissed Hiro and hugged him. Now Micah is wearing their covenant ring again, and Micah always takes care of Hiro every day. The days are lived very happily by Hiro and Mika. He really makes a good boyfriend. Now Hiro's condition looks quite improved, and Hiro also invites Mika for a walk to his favorite place. Hiro and Micah are seen having a wedding, but there they start to feel pain and say that he really loves Micah and doesn't want to leave him. Micah was sad and they hugged. When Micah looked after Hiro, Hiro also asked Micah to print photos taken from his camera. Coincidentally, at that time the nurse came because of a schedule. Mika finished printing all her photos, but suddenly she got a call from her brother Hiro, who said that Hiro's condition was not good and he was in a coma. Micah ran until he fell and the photos fell apart. It turned out to be a photo of him when Micah was taking care of Hiro all this time. He ran while video calling Hiro, but finally Hiro died while seeing Mika's face on the phone. And the movie ends.